Hey guys, Troy Dooley, the Beachside CEO. Hope you're having a great day. I'm out just chilling today. Free advertising for Donut Hole, one of my establishments here in Destin. It's fun to just be at home sometimes, and in the month of August I'm more at home than I'm gone. September, October we're on the road, but matter of fact, September, the first week of September, we're going to be in Franklin, Tennessee at the DS Edge Business School. If you're looking to launch a company, if you're already launched your company but you're not having the success that you want, or maybe you've been in business 30 years and you just want to show up and get your cup filled with some nuts and bolts stuff, man, please, we want you there. Go to dsedge.com and you can go ahead and register. But I want to ask a question. Is network marketing, is direct selling manipulating the youth in America today, the millennial generation? Are specific companies manipulating their millennial culture inside of the company? And I'm not the one really asking this. What I'm seeing is I'm seeing media, I'm seeing big name people from Wallstreet, from NBC, from Fox News. I mean, you name it. I'm watching this stuff and questioning, man, do they have it wrong or do they have it right? And I think that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. You know, I started looking back at some of the current companies that have launched in the 21st century. I started to go back to the 20th century, and I will in one part. I want to use a leader here in a minute of a 20th century leader that manipulated the youth. But when I look at some of the first companies that really honed in on that young generation, the first one that comes to mind is Visalis. You know, when Nick Sarnicola and Blake Mallins decided they were going to buy their old company, they were going to try to figure out how to make this work, they were going to put it back together. They were still in school. I mean, out of high school into college, they're figuring out what they were going to do. They were not, you know, where they are today. And literally, for the most part of their career, they were single millennials, partying, having a great time. But yet they had this culture that they created that people followed them in. So I'm sitting there looking at that and saying, okay, here's two guys. They teamed up with Ryan Blair. They're three single dudes in their 20s. Partying, having a great time. I mean, man, Blake's like a surfer boy. You got to listen to his mom as she shares this stuff. But when you watch these three, you realize, okay, they had a focused flash mob, and I used that back when they were going like this, because that's what they were. Everybody moving in the same direction, everybody having fun, nobody wanting to hurt anybody. And I look around at some of the companies today, and I look at their cultures. And I see where the media is coming from. I see where Wall Street's coming from. I see where regulators are coming from, because we're not seeing that same type of focused flash mob mentality, if you will. Instead, what we're seeing is just this gangster mentality is what it is. And, you know, I'm looking at this saying, okay, why is it that we have some companies that have this focused feel? They've got a millennial generation. People are kicking butt in those companies. They're dressing the part. They're talking the part. They're living the part. They still get hypey sometimes, but it's not out of the box. And then why is it that some companies, it's like a freaking, it isn't even a flash mob. It's just a mob mentality. I hear the F-bomb coming in from the audience. I hear the F-bomb shots from stage. I mean, you'd think we were in the early 21st century where we were still using shock jock mentality. And that's just weird to me. But it made me realize this is where the media is getting their stuff. They're showing up at the events. They're seeing the way that the millennials are dressing. They're seeing the way that they're acting. They're seeing what's happening when in the hallways afterwards. And I'm thinking, okay, so I don't think that we're manipulating the youth. I think what's happened is we're not mentoring the youth. See, the one thing that we have in a common denominator is if you go and look at the sports industry, you see some guys that have and gals that have come in off the streets. They've just been average everyday Joes that are talented as all get out, but they've lived in a culture where, hey, let's party, let's have fun, let's do whatever we want. Some of them a little bit gangster, and they end up in trouble. They end up with the wrong stuff if they're not mentored correctly. We see it in Hollywood, middle class white gals that's supposed to know how to keep their little honeypots covered up, and all of a sudden there's some picture, and here it is with the whole world to see. Okay, and we find out, well, this is my way of getting attention. We see actors' daughters who say, well, hey, I paid this porn company to do this movie because I thought it would get me attention. You know, we go to the music scene and we see these young, up-and-coming, passionate kids, and all of a sudden you see them toking on a little bit of marijuana. You know, all this stuff that's out of the... But they're not being mentored. They're surrounded by people that are just yes people. And that's what I'm seeing inside of network marketing. And please don't get offended with what I'm saying here, but this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that all of a sudden we've gone from a culture that talks about personal development. We talk about mentoring to where we're allowing the kids actually to run rampant. It's kind of like a 2-year-old at home. You know, you get so tired of hearing that 2-year-old cry that finally you just say, okay, do whatever you want to do, so they'll shut up. And that's what I'm seeing. Now, not every company, not every culture that's being driven by the millennials do I see that. So I know that this is not across the board. Matter of fact, about half this generation's been fighting 2 wars for the last 10 years. These guys and gals are coming back. They've seen more in life than most of us have. So they're not out there partying and ripping it up, and they're really wanting to go somewhere. And then I see the kids that stayed at home, went to school, they're getting out of college, and they're saying, man, I need a job. Or they're getting out of high school saying, man, I don't know if I'm going to have a job when I get out of college. But they're focused. So it's not like this is just some wild and crazy millennial generation. And I even had a gal the other day say, well, Troy, the kids are all slackers, man. They just play video games. I've got a son that plays video games. I've got a good friend whose brother plays video games. You know, there's a lot of money to be made in video games, so don't knock that one either. But I know where the mindset is. And this is what I'm starting to see. I'm starting to see CEOs, top executives that get so excited about just the sheer numbers that are coming into the company that they've kind of gotten excited about that. And when you hang out with kids, you can get excited. I was down in Miami, I don't know, about a month ago now, just hanging out with a bunch of these millennials. And you know what? It's addictive. You all of a sudden say, man, I can remember back when I was their age, and they're having so much fun and all that, but yet you have to draw that line in the sand. From a dad that's actually raising 6 millennials, all of them with different personalities, all of them that have decided to go in different directions. I've got a son that's he does promotions for rock shows and stuff like that. He's a DJ, totally different direction. Totally different deal. It calls him Lithium Chaos, you know, because they're in that party scene, kind of like a lot of the millennials. I've got my oldest son who's a millennial at the top end. He's just in his 30s, who runs a cleaning company in Destin and employs a lot of people. I've got my youngest son, adult son, 24, who works with me in the business. So I mean, every one of them's different personalities. I've got 2 daughters that are in their 20s, and one of them's coming back this weekend from a 2-month trip to Haiti working with children. The other one was in Guatemala. So I mean, when you look at this, you see that it's just across the board. But it all comes down to the mentorship that we give these kids. I look at Visalis. I want to go and talk about them for a second. I watch where Blake Mallins and Nick Sarnicola started that company from. These are guys that were what we would call millennials. They were in their 20s. They were in school. Blake was a surfer going to law school, I believe is what it was. And Nick, dude, was coming from Michigan to California, and they were hanging out on the college, and that's what they drove their growth with. But they had this, what I coined back then is a focus flash mob mentality. They were all going in one direction. They were pushing people. They were raising people up. That's what you have to do. I look at the Limu company today and what Gary Racer's done, surrounded himself with a lot of young guys. John, his son over there, leading the pack now. And they've got a young generation, some of them just right out of high school. And they don't go around telling them quit college, man, you don't need an education. They tell them use the money that you're making to pay for your education. Get mom and dad taken care of. Keep going forward. And they've got just a cool mentality over there. They got a great culture that's growing over there. I look at Sarah Robbins, who is one of the most successful millennials in direct selling, 7-figure earner, top leader over at Rodan and Fields. You talk about a girl that knows how to mentor. I look at her like a little sister, but man, when she opens up her mouth and talks, all I do is take notes. Because it's like, man, when her husband, when he talks, I want to listen, because it's like, man, how can I train other men to realize I got a powerful woman who knows what she's going to do, and I'm going to support her. You know, when you look at this, you realize, wow, this is some pretty powerful stuff. When I look at Lioness has got a young and crazy culture, and then they've got this really old culture over there, my age. And their young culture, man, they are tapping into the music scene in Miami. They're doing all kinds of stuff, but they're very focused. They business casual, business professional. I've gone into some events lately, guys, where the founders of the company, instead of wanting to raise people up, they get on their level. They're dropping F-bombs. They're doing all this stuff that you just can't do if you're going to build a professional organization, because when you do it, here's what happens. When we get on the level of kids that haven't been mentored correctly, and we start promoting this stuff, then the media comes after us. All of a sudden, Wallstreet comes after us. Regulators come after us. That's the problem that I'm seeing today. So think about this. If you're in a company where it's been a little bit wild, you know, the old west, as they said, you know, you all of a sudden, instead of business casual, people are coming in their club attire, and you're seeing more TNA at a network marketing event than you would at the club at that night, then we got some problems. When the boys are coming into the meetings and their pants are halfway down and their butts are hanging out, not a good deal. You got to dress it, you got to be it, you got to change, and it all comes down to wanting to change or helping them change. A lot of times kids don't know they even need to change until we train them and teach them, hey, we want to help you become the leader that you really want to become. When we do that, the sky's the limit on where we can take this. I got to do a shout out, Brad Alcazan over at Vima. I love his mom and dad. I've watched Brad grow up in this business. It's been fun to see his success, especially the last year or so. But he's got a culture over there at Vima that he's a part of, because he's a millennial. And I mean, they're wild and crazy. And they called it the Young People Revolution. And something that I've watched lately is that Brad's starting to do this hashtag called Young Professionals Revolution. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to see a change. I'm starting to see a shift in his mindset. I'm starting to see how he's kicking butt and doing some things over there. I was talking with a good friend of his and a good friend of mine, Jeff Weisberg, out in California, and he said, man, watching what Brad's doing has been amazing, Troy. And I said, that's cool, you know. And so I was kind of watching that, and I just wanted to do a shout out to him. I'll tell you another one, Seymour Green over at Wake Up Now. Seymour is he's a guy like me, just kind of grew up middle America, you know, always having to work, single parents, trying to raise money, trying to do stuff. And he was a wild one, man. I can remember some of his early videos and early posts. It was, I'm looking at this saying, who is this whack job? He's totally out of compliance. What the heck's going on? And as I've gotten to know Seymour and I've gotten to know his mentors, because literally his company brought him up and mentored him, all of a sudden he is leading from the field and telling these guys, you can't do this. What I did was not ethical. It wasn't right. We gotta take the high road. When we see these types of leaders rise up from within the culture, the millennial generation, that's where your new leaders come from. It's not going to be us old guys preaching this crap. It's going to be those that are in the culture, you guys that really want this, you women that say, I want to be somebody, I want to be a lady boss, I want to do this stuff. That's what's going to make a difference. So guys, let's do our best. You know, again, let's keep asking the question, are we manipulating or are we growing the millennial generation? Because that's what we need to be doing. Live life like it's an epic adventure. Stay dangerous, stay strong, and if you're in a home-based business, act like it.